everyone, and welcome to Live with Janome. I'm Miriam Coffee, and welcome to another Live with Janome. And today, and also happy St. Patrick's Day if you guys are watching live. Today I'm really excited because it's kind of a twofer. We kind of have two things I want to talk about today. First of all, we're going to talk about the Mirage stitches that are exclusive to the CM17, which are kind of these sort of floating stitches. Let me pull out some examples here. So they are stitched with stabilizer in your bobbin thread and top thread matching, and then it creates these stitches, and when you fold the fabric in a certain way, which I will show you, it creates these little floating stitches, and you don't see on the back, you will see the little stitches that connect them together. So these would be your connecting stitches, but from the front it just looks like they're floating, which is why they're called the Mirage stitch. And there are actually 20 Mirage stitches that are in the CM17, and you also have the ability to move those stitches around and change them and get countless others. So you can change the stitch width, the length, and then the spacing in between each Mirage stitch. So you've got really endless possibilities for some really cool stitches. And we have kind of already done some videos on this, but I'm going to show you one use for this that I really like to do. That can be really a fun way of adding to your project. So we're going to be going over that. And I also want to talk to you guys about the exclusive new design collection that Janome has partnered with So Steady, Embroidery Library, and Urban Threads to create a 24-pack of exclusive design that you can get that are actually exclusively made and digitized for the RE48B hoop, which is the largest hoop on the market. It's massive, and you can do some really beautiful stuff in this with this hoop. And I'm going to show you a few of those examples today. Unfortunately, I don't have all 24 of them stitched out. I wish I did, but I didn't have the time to get those all stitched out for you guys. But I do have a handful, so I will show you a few of those in just a second. But these collections, so we have 11 embroidery designs, which were again partnered with Embroidery Library and Urban Threads, and it's 11 large embroidery designs that are for this hoop specifically. And then we have 11 quilting designs plus 2 designs, other featured designs with So Steady that are quilting designs that are with our quilting hoop. And you can also use those for other things. They don't have to strictly be used for quilting, but that was their original purpose. But that's the fun thing with sewing, is you can always change it and put your own spin on it. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing today, with putting like my little spin around the Mirage stitches. So I'm going to show you a few more examples of the stitches, and then I'm going to show you some of the designs that we have in the CM17 RE48B hoop, which again, you can get those from your, if you want more information about that, go to your dealer, just like always, go to your local dealer, and or also on the janome.com. There's more information there. So again, it's 24 designs, 11 embroidery and basic, and then 11 quilting, and then 2 more just regular designs from the So Steady. So I've already shown these are just a few of the Mirage stitches. And then we just have a few more stitched out, and then you also can do some, this one I actually really like because it kind of looks like stitches. You can also do it obviously between piecing the 2 pieces together, but you can also do it on the solid piece of fabric and kind of create your own fabric. So you could actually use this fabric and cut this up and put this into your quilt or into a bag or any other sewing project. So it's kind of like creating your own fabric, which I think is really cool. I love creating textures within whenever I make things. So I'm excited to show you that technique. So this is kind of what we're going to be doing, which is adding borders with the Mirage stitches. So it will say this is my embroidery design in the center, or this could even be just a block, and you can make these in all different sizes, which I actually think would be really cute. So not only could use it within the quilting, but you can use it in other sewing projects as well. So I'm going to show you a finished project of that. So this is actually one in progress. So you've added the 2 sides there. This one's actually a done one, which this is actually one of the embroidery, embroidery, library, and urban thread designs, which is this large bee here in the center, which is stitched out again on the large hoop on the CM17, and I've added the borders around. All of these were added. These are the Mirage stitches, and I'm going to show you how we switch back and forth between, because it's actually kind of a 2-part process to add those borders to it. So this is kind of what we're going to be doing today. And again, this is one of the 11 embroidery designs, which I think this one's really pretty. I love bee stuff because I used to have a handful of hives. I unfortunately don't have any bees right now, but I used to have I had 6 hives, and my little ladies, I miss them, but I like to have some bee stuff. So this will either be a wall hanging or, I don't know, a pillow or something. I don't know what I'm doing with it, but it will be something at some point. So a few other of those designs are, this one I love. This is the peacock. And when you look at the peacock on the website or on the, when you actually look at the design, originally it's going to be kind of, they're going to be completely different colors. So it's going to be more neutral colorways. I decided to make it a little bit more fun and bright. So I think this turned out really pretty, and that's one of my favorite ones. And it was really fun to stitch out and kind of pick out all those colors. And next we have, it's a lace heart. Again, also one of the collections. And this one was really pretty to stitch out. Again, I'm not quite sure what it's going to be, but it will be something at some point. And lastly, but not leastly, because this is one of my favorite ones, although I'm a tiny bit sick of it because I have stitched it out like 8 times, or actually more than 8 times, because I did do lots of samples with these. So I have stitched these out a lot, which are the butterfly stitch, the butterflies, which I think are beautiful, and I've done them in 2 different colorways. And this is them at their mirror image. And there's actually a really cute project that I did for these, and I've made 3 sets of them. So unfortunately I don't have them here because they're all sent into the office for the trunk shows. So if at your local dealer, if you guys are doing the Continental event for the CM17, and there's going to be in the trunk show, and you're going to see some really cool samples, and there's going to be some butterfly pillows. I call them the best friend butterfly pillows. And because they have the names of your best friends and like a little best friend quote and a little pocket for you to write notes in for your best friend, and they have a little magnet so they hug, and then it's a really cute little project. Maybe we'll do a live on it on how to make it one day. But I love the butterflies. I think they're so beautiful, and I love this colorway. In the picture it's more of a cool tone, but I think that warm is really really fun. So let's get started. So I'm going to move this hoop out of the way, and we're going to do some stitching on the machine. So first we're going to wake her up, and let me grab my stylist. So on the machine we are just on our regular utility stitches right now, but we're going to go to our decorative stitches, which is the 2nd button here on the top, and then our Mirage stitches are actually the very last within the design, within the decorative stitches. So instead of going to the right and flipping through the whole thing, I'm just going to actually go to the left and go backwards, and the Mirage stitches are right here, so it's a lot faster. So I'm going to select the Mirage stitches, and there are 18 on this page, and then if you turn the page there are 2 more. So like I mentioned, there are 20 of them. And again, once you change all of the stitch width and length, you get a completely different look. For example, this is the little circle one, which I love. I think dots and circles are super cute. So I can increase the width of that. So I'm actually going to do it up here because it's a little bit easier to move. But as you can see, those dots have changed. And then I can also stretch them out or scrunch them up. And then I also have the ability, so these first two are your stitch width and then the density or the length. This middle one is the needle tension, if you needed to adjust that. And then next we have our distance between the two Mirage stitches. So if I wanted them to be further away, I could spread them out, or again, I could make them smaller if I wanted to and make them really, really tight. And then lastly is the pressure foot pressure. So again, I can adjust that if I need to. And just like always, it shows what foot I want to be using. I want to be using the F foot or the F2 foot. And you want to be using the F foot because it has that little cutout or that little notch out of the foot, which gives you the ability to glide that decorative stitch without the foot smashing it. So you want to make sure you use either one of those feet. For this stitch, I do kind of prefer the F foot over the F2 foot because it has that little red notch on it. I'm going to pull that out again. It has that little red knot, which is our center position. And for this stitch, it's important to pay attention to that. But if you did use the F2 foot, there is a little notch in the back of the foot right there that also indicates the center position. So either feet works great. So let's just, and then, another thing about the Mirage stitches, just like any of the decorative stitches, you have the ability to favorite stitch any of them. So if I really liked the way this, after I stitched it out and I think it stitched out really nice, I could save that. I'm going to select, and then I can go to FS, which with the arrow going into the folder, can select that, and I could FS for 1, so that would be my favorite one. And then I could arrow that down, and then it has made all of those changes, and then I can obviously come back to it and those changes have been saved. But I always have the ability to go back to my DFT, which stands for default, and it's gone back to its original settings. And then you can always override that if you want. So with that being said, let's just do some stitch outs just so we can kind of get the feel of what the Mirage stitches do. So again, this is what they look like when you're done on a solid piece of fabric, which I'll show you that one first, and then we're going to add our borders. So first we're going to need some tearaway stabilizer, and we need some fabric, and I'm going to fold the fabric in half, and I'm going to actually be sewing along the folded line. I'm going to be actually sewing the intersection between, so basically in that fold, I'm going to be stitching some, like half my stitch is going to be stitched on the stabilizer and half of it's going to be stitched on the actual fabric. So I'm going to show this to you. I'm going to go ahead and lower my foot. I'm going to make some adjustments because you do need to be fairly precise with this, and hopefully I can do this at this angle. But what you want is, if you look a little bit closer at the stitch itself, we have our decorative part and then our connecting stitches. You want the connecting stitches to stitch on that fold and actually technically on the tearaway stabilizer. So you want it to be on the stabilizer and not on the actual fold, but the decorative part's going to be on half and half. And it will make a little bit more sense once I do it. So I'm going to slow my machine down, and I'm going to, I've got my foot lowered, and I'm going to just check my needle position, and I need to actually move this over a little bit. There we go. And I'm using the really convenient thumb wheel here, which I love, to make sure that I'm getting my needle exactly where I want, because at this angle it's a little hard to make sure that I'm in the right spot. So I'm going to slow this down a little bit, and then I'm going to press the start, and it's going to stitch. Oops. Let's stop that. It looks like something, it looks like I threaded this wrong. Sorry. Let's just check this. Sorry, I was quickly setting up today. I must have, my bobbin wasn't set in right. Let's just recheck this because I want to make sure this works. And my thread came out of the take-up lever because I think I actually threaded this on an angle and it's not best practices. So there you go. We're threading back up and then lock our machine and we're going to thread it. And we are threaded, and I'm just going to pull that thread underneath the foot for these purposes, and we're going to start over. All right. And again, I'm going to actually hit the begin again button just because I want to make sure that I'm starting from the beginning. And that's on basically all the Janome machines. So again, lowering my needle, lowering my foot, and now I'm going to press start. And I'm going to speed it up just a tiny bit, just so we're not here forever. And I'm going to slow it down a little bit. And those connecting stitches are going to be on the stabilizer, and the decorative part is going to be between the fabric and the tearaway. All right, we're going to cut our threads. And so now you'll see the stitches, the connecting stitches are on the stabilizer, and then the decorative stitches between the two. And then all we have to do is, I like to actually press it a little bit, and then press it, pull it open, and you kind of tug that open, and now you have these adorable little polka dots kind of floating in the middle of your fabric. And then I could just tear that off, and then a lot of times I actually go back and press this again just to kind of make sure that it's tugged out all the way and you've got all of those stitches kind of pulled out in the right direction. So that is how you do the Mirage stitches if you're doing it on a solid piece of fabric and you're not connecting multiple pieces of fabric together. But if you're connecting multiple pieces of fabric together, it's actually a lot easier, and I think it's a really great way of adding the Mirage stitches in a very functional way to your project. So I'm just going to add these two together. So we're going to stack these guys together, and I'm just going to add these two pieces because I can't find my other scrap fabric right now. So we're going to just add these two together. I'm going to stack them on top of each other's right sides together, and I'm going to grab some stabilizer and I'm going to place that on the back. And now instead of lining up with the red arrow, we're actually going to be lining up with the edge of the foot. So this is why it's actually a lot easier. So I'm now only watching the edge of my fabric with the edge of the foot. And I can speed this up a tiny bit more. So when you are adding, if you are adding a border or a frame to your project, you do want to make sure to add a little bit more than a 1/4 inch, because this is more around around a 1/2 inch, because we're using the edge of the foot and our needles in the center position. So we're going to be having a larger seam. So we need to make sure we compensate for that larger seam allowance by adding that mathematically into whatever project that we're working on. So just a little to beware. So you can see this is a lot faster because I'm just watching the edge of the foot to the edge of the fabric. And so now we're giving a decorative stitch and a construction seam at the same time. So we're going to stop here, and I'm going to cut this, and we're going to pull that open. And now you can see we have joined two pieces of fabric together, and we've added this really cute little polka dot stitch in between. And then I would just tear this away and then give it a good press. And you could do a would be a really cute little block. You could do kind of like a split rail, and then make a bunch of those, piece them together, and then use that as your block and piece those together, which I think would be a really cute little quilt block. So we're going to actually stitch this on for real now. So this is my quilt block, or whatever I want to do at the end of it. So we're going to sew our border onto here. But if I just sewed on my border, if I just put my Mirage stitch on and I just started sewing like this, I would have Mirage stitches on the outer part of my border, and I don't want that. So we're going to actually switch back and forth between stitches. So I'm going to grab a pin or two, and I'm going to pin this together just because of the angle that I'm at. It's a little bit harder to see, and I want to make sure that it's nice and straight. So I'm just going to pin this together just so it stays. And then one more thing, we need to make a mark here. So we need to know where my block, the center of my block starts versus where my border ends. So it's actually going to be right here. So I'm just going to you can either fold it back, make a little finger press there, and then now I know that that is where my center of my block and my border meets. So, or I could actually peel it back and look that way, whichever way you want to find is easiest for you. So now I'm going to take my project and lower my foot. Now, before I start sewing, I actually want to go back to my utility stitches. So I'm going to select my regular piecing utility stitches. I'm going to stay with my needle in the center position, which is 4.5. My stitch length at 2.4 is fine. I could shrink that down a little bit if I wanted to. And I'm going to sew my straight seam all the way till I hit that blue mark there. And then I'm going to stop, and then we're going to switch stitches. I'm going to sew that down so I get just a couple more stitches. Okay, so now I'm going to lift my needle up. I have sewn to where I have to that blue mark. And now I'm going to go back to my screen, go to decorative stitches, and then remember we're going to go actually left so that we go to the end. And then I'm going to actually select stitch 5 because that's the stitch that I used for this block. And now all I have to do is start sewing. And all I have to do is make sure I watch, let me speed it up a little bit, that I'm just watching the edge of the foot with the raw edge of the fabric. Since we're just lining the edge of the foot up, and we don't have to be as precise as we do with the raw edge in the stabilizer, I can speed this up a little bit more. Even though I'm going a little crooked, it will be alright. No one will notice if you don't tell. And then I'm going to cut my threads. And then I'm going to just press this, I'm going to pull this open, so I'm going to pull this open, and then you can see how we've added that border. It started off with the straight stitch, and then we're going to square this up, and I'm going to do the next, that last seam. All right, so you guys are going to laugh at me because I pre-cut the strips, and then I grabbed this strip to sew on top. So this one's too short to actually sew on the side. So I actually can't show the last bit of it, but I'm going to walk you through it since I messed up here. So I do apologize that I pre-cut the strips and then grabbed the wrong one. It happens to the best of us and the worst of us, but so my apologies. So when you do this, make sure you grab the right strip for your border fabric or your frame fabric. So I would then cut off the edges and then do the same thing here. And actually, let's see. So what I would do here is I would make my mark. I would sew, make my little mark here, because this is where my center of my block and my border, the intersection where that meets. So I would start with my straight stitch and I would sew here. I would switch back to my Mirage stitches. I would do my Mirage stitches till I hit the end mark, again where the center meets your border fabric or your frame fabric, and then go back and switch to your straight stitch and then sew to the end. So as long as you switch between at both of those intersections, you'll get a really cute little corner like that. And then when you would flip this over, you would have your little gray little squares all the way around your deer or whatever your project is. And then you could square that up and you could use this as a quilt block, or, you know, the possibilities are endless. So I hope you guys are excited to try the Mirage stitches in this technique or in this way of using them. And I hope you also visit your dealer to check out the CM17 RE28B hoop to check out that design collection, because again, those 24 designs are absolutely beautiful and I think you will really love them. So don't forget to go to Janome's website, or your local dealer to ask them about about that design package. And I will see you guys next time, and happy sewing. Bye guys.